I remember this encounter. It was probably like over 15 years ago because I was working at our medical center in Manhattan, and I haven't worked there in probably 17 years now. But I remember being at the front desk and speaking to a patient who was going to travel to the UK because at the time they couldn't find anything in the US. I don't think it was available at all to do this transplantation. And as they kind of, were telling me this, I'm like, so let me get this straight. You're taking poop from one person and then putting it into you, and that's going to help you. And it was so foreign at the time. But this idea of transplanting something healthy into the body of someone that's not healthy is a very, very, common thing, as we know with organs. Can you go into your story of how you came about this idea of FMT and how you got into this field and even going so far as creating a supplement around it?
Yeah, I think I also found out about it when I was in school to be a naturopath. I was at a retreat and one of the docs was working on it in the early days. So Dr. Mark Davis was one of the pioneers of doing fecal transplant in the Crohn's colitis community. That was his focus as a naturopath. And this was like 2012, 2011, early 2000s. And I loved it. I was already getting really excited about the microbiome. It sort of bridged my understanding of, natural remedies and what we eat and drink and think and how that impacts our biochemistry and physiology. And I had already kind of come to a conclusion that the microbiome was the link of understanding the mechanism between many of the tools, especially nutrition, that we were seeing have so much power. And so when he told me about this, I was like, when can I sign up to work with you? I'd, come from a background in a lab and really loved microbiology and biochemistry. And I was really lucky to be a kind of part of this first wave of FMT. Not long after, the regulations changed and it shifted to only treating C. diff patients. But I was lucky enough to help modify some protocols and then ultimately open my own fecal transplant stool bank based on that work and treat patients with C. diff with healthy human poop in the form of a bacterial pellet. So sort of a super probiotic that people could take orally. And it was profound how it treated C. diff, over 90% effective in, clinical trials. It was kind of 80 to 100%, but we felt like depending on dosing, you could give repeat dosing, you could really knock C. diff out no matter where a patient was at, which was super cool. So I just dove headfirst and, I guess you can redirect me, but the background of it was ancient, it's mentioned in ancient Chinese literature, it's standard of care and veterinary medicine, this concept of a healthy component of this organ system being transferred to people makes so much sense when we started to contextualize it with the role the microbiome is playing in health and how we as Western kind of sick people tend to have depleted ecosystems. And whether that's missing species or missing nutrients or who knows what, this is filling a piece of that. And it just makes so much logical sense, which is one of my favorite parts.
It really does make a lot of sense. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that's very taboo poop, This is not something we like to talk about and find gross and all these things, but it does tell a lot about, who we are, the frequency of it, consistency, all these things. I mean, you even have this tagline within Thaena, like eat shit and thrive. I love it. It's like, you go directly in for you're not holding back on these things, but it's very true.